Hello everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my spoiler-free review for The Hunters by David Wragg. Now this is a traditionally published book. It's book 1 in the Tales of the Plain series. Book 2 will actually be coming out in August. And I'm telling you, I'm excited for book 2 because even though The Hunters reads as a standalone, you can read this on its own. It does have a satisfying completion to it and possibility for continuation. I want more. That being said though, this is planned to be a trilogy for the series. And like I said, book 2 is coming out pretty soon. I am so excited for it because I had such a blast with The Hunters. Now, in particular, this is a fantasy or a low fantasy mixed with a Western style in terms of genre. It has such a fun and thrilling chase throughout this entire story, as well as those deeper character moments. And we're going to be diving into all of that today because there's a lot to talk about in this, even though it's spoiler free. The first thing to know is it is thrilling, it is action packed, it's an escape following a young girl and her aunt that are set on the run, and it even has time to explore the meaning of familial bonds and the power of stories. Throughout this, it is told through multiple POVs, and we meet a variety of different characters throughout this story, including that ambitious young girl and her very protective aunt with a violent past. We also get some bantering siblings who have phenomenal dynamic and is just a delight to read their interactions. We also have a greedy guild master, an intimidating mercenary, and a relentless prince. Now that being said, there are a few other POVs you will see throughout this more towards the end of the book. However, these are very carefully selected characters and they're more designed to provide a broader insight into select scenes. And honestly, I think it was really well done. I really appreciated the added detail because as the reader, it felt like I was watching a movie, getting some added insight into pretty big action scenes. The story itself follows Ree, that protective aunt, and her niece Giovanni. They have spent years traveling the world trying to make a place, a home for themselves, but after they finally find a home, they build a life for themselves out on a frontier sort of setting. Ree's past finally catches up with her and they're set back on the run, and this begins the entire thrilling chase of this story. Something I absolutely adore in stories is found family, and this was no exception. As throughout their escape, they meet unlikely friends, they find plenty of enemies, and face hard truths, all while trying to survive in an unforgivable land. As I mentioned earlier, this is a blending of genres. It feels like a low fantasy with a blending of Western style. Now, this has deserts, frontiers, prospectors, to swords, alchemy, and stories of gods. Meanwhile, the pacing moves between medium and fast, with the ever-present threat looming over these characters in their wild escape. I want to talk about two things that surprised me in this because I wasn't anticipating, first of all, how dark things got as quickly as they did. It starts off in a wholesome sort of way, and then all of a sudden, everything goes dark. It felt quite realistic how in an instant everything can change, but I loved that aspect. I loved that layer of darkness added to the jovial nature at points because there is some banter, there are some jokes, there are some wholesome moments throughout this, and it balances out really well with the dark nature of how life can take some pretty bad turns. Really, those darker moments just added a somber feel to some of those wholesome moments and really reminded me how high those stakes actually are. Like I said, I personally love this because it also explores some of the themes I love in stories. It delves into the extremes that someone will go to, cultural differences and mob mentality, just to name a few. Secondly, the emotionally impactful moments that hit hard. Those were surprising. I wasn't expecting that, especially when we're getting into kind of a thrilling chase. It feels like an adventure. It feels like that fast-paced story that you just want to devour and binge, but you still get those character-driven moments. and I was not anticipating to be emotionally wrecked by this author. So yes, the author does not shy away from exploring the emotional vulnerabilities of the characters and the impacts that it has throughout their wild escape. It doesn't stop there either with just the main characters, because David Wragg actually extends that out into the side characters as well. So we get that emotional damage in a few places. And I mean, as a reader, I love being emotionally wrecked. So yeah, I was pretty happy, although upset at the same time with those developments. Overall, I would say that shows some pretty good skill from the author, as they're able to explore those emotional vulnerabilities, that character development, all woven throughout this epic wild chase from not just two characters, but four, and actually multiple, because even from some other characters' perspectives, we see some interesting arcs and developments and motivations from them as well. And going back to those themes that I was talking about, there is a predominant theme here of motherhood, paternal relationships, and finding one's identity, which are all thoughtfully woven into this story. These are themes that personally, I adored how they were really well explored, and they're explored in times of great pressure and stress to boot, but being able to see how the author took the time to explore those themes, give them the time and the grace that they needed to really make it feel authentic to the characters, I absolutely appreciated. I've said it before too, where I am a very character-driven reader, and while I do love my action and I do love the plot, I will stay committed to a story, and it will stick with me longer if I can really connect and have those moments with the characters and see their depth and growth. And this was definitely one of them. These characters are going to stick with me for a while. I absolutely adored them. I'm so excited to continue with book 2 for that reason, because I want to see what's next for these characters. In The Hunter in particular, the dynamics between them were fantastic. They were just spot on. Their banter, their relationships, the dialogue. We have lovable characters and hateable ones. And I just loved all of their interactions, whether it was good or bad. There are also plenty of secrets and mysteries surrounding Rhee and Giovanni. Really, it was tantalizing. I had a hard time putting this down with all of these elements put together. How these secrets and the twists that came out of all of this impact their character developments and their relationships was gripping. And like I said, this was just hard to put down as a result. And before you ask, yes, I did immersion read this with the paperback and the audiobook. The narrator, Sarah Powell, did a phenomenal job with her performance for all of these characters. In particular, she really brought Rhee to life, and Giovanni. I absolutely loved her performance for those characters, and I really think it is worthwhile to pick up the audiobook if you're looking to read this as well and you enjoy audiobook format. So overall, these elements work together seamlessly and make for a binge-worthy read. As I mentioned, this is a self-contained story with possibility for continuation. So even though it's not a standalone, it is part of a trilogy. You can definitely read it on its own and stop there, or continue with book 2, which will be coming out towards the end of August, I believe. With that being said, I do highly recommend this for fantasy readers looking for a Western mix or vice versa. It's a bingeable story with plenty of action and doesn't skimp on the character work, and really, I can't recommend it enough. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you check this out, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you read it already? If so, what did you think? Did you add it to your TBR today? Leave your comments down below. I always love hearing from you. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.